Hi everyone! As I've been looking over some of the best content in 2016, I thought it'd be interesting to share with you some research about what drives the best performing teams. And there are actually two drivers when it comes to this. The first is higher than average ability to read other people's feeling, and this is called social intelligence. And the second is the equality in the distribution of conversational turn taking, which is a fancy term for saying that each of the team members should roughly talk for the same amount of time. And there's an interesting project that Google started in 2012, codename Aristotle, into which they hired both internal and also external researchers to actually look at the data of more than 100 of their teams to eventually find an algorithm to be able to predict what drives success in a team. So basically what they did was at first to gather as much raw data as possible from their teams, and after some months they hired some engineers to look at the data to eventually spot some interesting patterns. However, they quickly realized there's not much value to this, and to give you some insight about Google's capability with data-driven decision-making, they actually pioneered terms such as HR analytics, and they were between the first reportedly to make their recruitment process through algorithms. So basically they went as far as to automatically tune up algorithms given their new data as the new data came in. So given the fact that they immediately realized that this initial approach of studying raw data within their teams was not paying off, because some teams some successful teams were composed of members that socialized between each other, while other successful teams were formed of complete strangers, or other accomplished teams were favoring a strong management, while others were favoring a flat structure. So they realized this is not the most efficient way. This is not an efficient way to look at the data. So they started looking into more research when it comes to group development and team performance. And they eventually came across a term called group norms, which basically mean the way, the standards, and the way we act, the way we behave when we gather. So, for example, some teams might discourage arguments when reaching to a conclusion, while others might actually encourage a culture of clashes between their members, so that the best of the ideas would eventually form the conclusion, would win. And so by taking into account these type of norms, they formed lists with such behaviors, and they started analyzing. And they were so successful in analyzing and driving conclusions with such data that they actually decided that it's the ability of influencing group norms that is the main factor that influences a team's performance. So they decided to take this one step further by running some experiments, and the most interesting experiment that they ran was between two teams. The objective was to measure the collective intelligence of each of the teams. The first team was formed by serious thinkers, while the second was more like a free-flowing team. And on an individual scale, the serious thinkers would almost certainly outperform any individuals from the free thinkers, from the free-flowing team. So while the data favors, while the data for the serious thinkers was nowhere near indicating that their collective intelligence increased by anything as a result of the group's collaboration, the same was not true in the second group. So actually the free-thinking, the free-flowing group was far superior in terms of collective intelligence as compared to the serious thinkers. And the reason why they performed so well was actually the first two reasons why I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So it's at first the ability to read other people's thinking and the social intelligence taking place in the teams, and this ability to communicate freely actually encouraged a natural flow of information, which by the end of the day, all members of the free flow team were roughly speaking for the same amount of time. So while these conclusions are nothing new for many great managers, I believe there are two essential conclusions that we take from this. The first one refers to the methodology employed here. And for example, if we employ a group of youngsters and we tell them that you must make sure that each and every one of you would roughly talk for the same amount of time, and if you're not careful with other people's feelings, I'm going to fire you, I don't believe that's the right way to achieve high performance and to encourage high performance in a team. So the first conclusion refers to the fact that when trying to tune up a team, it's more about the journey as opposed to the destination. And the second conclusion that is, I believe, quite innovative here is the traditional way to tune up teams' performance was initially to only look at an executive level and eventually through executive coaching, and more recently also through surveys and appraisals, yearly appraisals. While Google employed a completely data-driven approach, so they started by looking at the data and then they grew up from there. So this data-driven coaching capability is a very interesting thing that I believe should be studied by many companies when they are trying to tune up and to improve their team performance.